Welcome to this very special GrabBag edition of iPad for All Computing, coming to you from
TTJ Tech.
And before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. All right, let's do it. Now, before we go any further, I want to just let you know what is coming, what's still to come here in our iPad for All Computing class. First of all, we have a few weeks yet of this class, and one of the very next things we will be covering is one more Apple app, at least, and that is GarageBand. It will be a very brief overview and demo of GarageBand, much like we did with Pages, Keynote, and Numbers, in that, we're not going in depth about it, but we're going to just kind of show you what some of the possibilities are. And like with Keynote, Pages, and Numbers, we are going to be offering a digital cafe on not only GarageBand, but audio editing in general. So we'll use several apps in that cafe. That is going to be available soon, and if you want to go further in GarageBand, then that's the cafe for you. Another thing that we do have coming up, we're going to be talking about the App Store and downloading third-party apps. I will discuss the various apps that are on my iPad and what they do. Again, it's not going to be a teaching on each app, but just rather an overview of the different apps that I have, and we'll let the other trainers do that as well if they wish. They can share what's on their iPads and let you know the kinds of apps that they're using. And we're going to spend a few minutes demoing in detail a couple apps that we know might be of interest to some people. For our sighted folks, we're going to spend a little bit of time. I'm going to have my daughter demonstrate two apps that are very useful for drawing and sketching. One of them free, the other one, I think it might have a small fee to it, but I can't remember. You're certainly not required to get it, but it's something that we recommend or highly suggest. And Apple has actually recommended these two apps, especially if you are an Apple Pencil user. We're also going to be doing a pretty in-depth look at YouTube. We know everybody's been waiting for that, and we are finally going to do it. So Trainer Cliff and I are going to go into the studio, which really means just our own homes and recording. Anyway, we're going to get that recording all set for you, and we'll share it with you both how to use YouTube to watch videos, but also how to upload, because we've already learned how to use several apps. We discussed the camera, and we discussed Apple Clips and iMovie. So you've got these videos now. You want to upload them to YouTube, but how do you do it? So we're going to talk about that as well with regards to the YouTube app. Now, in addition to all of that still to come on iPad, we will definitely have some closing sessions, with plenty of time for questions and all of that. And this third-party app stuff will take a little bit longer than you think. Probably 2 sessions, maybe even 3, but I'd say 2, because we are going to talk about some ideas, not just apps. We will talk about apps, but we also want to talk about concepts, right? Because we never want this to feel like it's something that's obscure or far-reaching. We want you to understand, how does it practically work? Just like we did, some of you remember the demo last week on, I guess it was last week now, on multitasking. And I said, okay, it's fine to learn how to do this gesture and that gesture, but what does it mean? Where can I actually use it? And so we took you into the Wikipedia app and I made a Pages document and actually took some information from, Wikipedia and split screen and so forth. Well, the same is true here. We want to talk about some concepts. What if I want to do X, Y, or Z with my iPad? What if I want to run my own business? What if I want to be, do things for my students as a teacher, or maybe as a student or a parent? What about helping out with my church? What about helping out with running the restaurant, or, building a website or social media? We're going to talk about those things in broad terms, excuse me, to discuss how the iPad fits into that area of our lives. So it's not just what's on my iPad and a look at the App Store. That is important, and we are going to do it, but we're going to go a little bit beyond that. So that's what's still to come in this class. Now, for today, we've got kind of a grab bag for you. We're going to talk about all the things you might be wondering about. Not too many demos today, mostly discussion, maybe a demo here or there, but mostly discussing several aspects of things that we know people are going to want to know to really help you round out your iPad experience. We've put it in here now because, as I mentioned, next week, one of the things we're going to be getting into is GarageBand, and some of these accessories will directly relate to GarageBand. So one of the things on the agenda for today is talking about iPad accessories. We've talked about a few, but we're going to go even further than that. All right, so let's get started on this thing. First of all, since I already mentioned it, let's go ahead and talk about iPad accessories. Why not? All right. So you've got this beautiful iPad. What types of accessories might you want for this iPad? One of the first accessories, and of course, later on when we have our time with the trainers, they may have their own opinions and recommendations, and that's fine. We're going to welcome that, and I'm going to give you kind of the Apple perspective, and then if there's something third party, I'll let you know why I think it's so good. So I want to start out with cases, because you get this gorgeous iPad, you want to protect it, right? And so what are the case options that Apple has? And of course, we can definitely go third party. There's probably, I would have to say, hundreds of case options for each iPad, maybe more. And of course, I could be wrong. I haven't counted. But that's the point. Whether you go to Best Buy, Amazon, Target, Etsy, eBay, you're going to find all sorts of case and cover options. I prefer the Apple ones personally. I think they are the best. They're very good quality. And I don't like really bulky, thick, heavy cases. I like something, again, that's personal preference, okay? So some people will prefer the OtterBox, or the Life Proof, something that's really, really heavy and really, and that's fine. But I'm going to talk about the Apple ones first and foremost. So if you are a user of the 9th generation iPad, or any of the 10.2-inch iPads, really, which would be 7th, 8th, and 9th generation at this point, you have a couple of options. Apple sells and makes what they call the Smart Cover. Now, the Smart Cover does not offer back protection to the iPad, but it does offer protection of the display when it's closed. It has a beautiful microfiber lining on the inside of it that kind of actually cleans your screen as you open and close it in a sort of a manner of speaking. And it is also magnetized to the iPad. It's got magnets in it, so it can easily attach to the iPad. And you just kind of lift it up like opening the cover of a book. When you lift it up, it automatically wakes the iPad, and when you close it, it automatically sleeps the iPad. So that's a great benefit to the Smart Cover. Now, the Smart Cover is kind of made of a polyurethane material, and it is available in several colors. There's my personal favorite, the electric orange color. Then you also have some other English lavender. There's I think mallard green. There's several different colors that you can get of this. So maybe you want one for every occasion, But there is a very nice. They are a very nice cover, and they do provide that nice screen protect. Very, very thin, very light, so they don't add any weight or bulk to the iPad. The other thing that's nice about these covers is that they support a variety of positions, so you can fold them under. You can sort of fold them out to the side, kind of like origami. You can sort of use them as a stand. So whether you're reading, whether you're drawing, whether you're watching a movie, whether you're typing on screen, no matter what you're doing, you can kind of fold this cover in different ways to make it fit exactly what you're doing. It's almost limitless, right? In the different ways we can sort of configure the smart cover. And, you know, if we're going to use the back-facing camera, we would put the cover out to the side so it doesn't block the back camera, you know, those kinds of things. Apple also has a leather version of this smart cover. As of right now, I believe it's only available in black, but it does have all the same features, the same configurations, microfiber, the magnets, the wake and sleep, all that stuff, but it is made of leather, and that's a very nice option as well. Now, I mentioned to you that this does not have back protection. And so I will say that, unfortunately, my favorite accessory to solve that problem is no longer manufactured. You can still get it if you look hard enough, but you might pay a little more than you want to. So there are going to be some other options, and in that case, we would have to recommend third party. But I will tell you the one that I have, in case anybody really wants to be all in on Apple and, you know, do a little research, find this on Amazon or eBay or something. It was available on Amazon pretty recently, but it was just marked up a little bit, if I recall. And it is called the iPad leather sleeve, or the Apple leather sleeve for iPad. This was actually manufactured for the 10.5-inch iPad Pro back in 2017. And so when that model was discontinued, it wasn't too long until the leather sleeve was discontinued. I think the leather sleeve was discontinued in maybe just last year, 2021. But I actually happen to have two of them, one in taupe and one in red, and they are a perfect fit for this iPad because it's basically the same frame as the iPad that it was made for, or very, very similar. That was a 10.5. This is a 10.2 inch. And basically, to my understanding, the same body. And so what you have is a beautiful leather sleeve, and it has an Apple logo on the back. The iPad just goes inside the sleeve, okay? It's kind of like maybe what some people might have for your MacBooks or something. You don't use the iPad while it's in the sleeve. You just take it out. But it does fit in there even with the smart cover or the smart keyboard that we'll be talking about soon. And what's also nice is it has a holder on the top for your Apple Pencil. So it's got a slot for that, and it's just a beautiful thing, and I wish they still manufactured it, to be honest with you. So I've told you something really nice, and now you can't get it, right? Well, again, look third party. Search iPad cases, iPad sleeves. You'll be able to find something, I feel certain. But that is, how I get back protection when I'm carrying the iPad around, traveling with it, what have you. And that really kind of is a complete solution. And then if you need adapters and chargers and stuff, I'll talk about some briefcases here in a minute as well, or a little bit later, but that's third party. So that is the carrying solution for me. Now, let's talk about an area that I'm not a big fan of. And it is personal preference, so it's not a problem. We're not criticizing anybody. Don't want to offend anybody. But I am not a fan of screen protectors on the iPad. I understand why people use them. I get it. But what I don't like about them is that they tend to cause a couple of potential problems. The biggest one, and this was right from Apple, there was an Apple engineer, a senior engineer that actually, not senior engineer, but senior Apple Care advisor, who actually discussed this with me as well. They can cause what are known as phantom taps, because what happens is they build up static, and they can cause things to, randomly, I didn't mean to tap on that, I didn't mean to press that, why did that happen? Well, it can be phantom taps from a screen protector. The other thing that can happen with these screen protectors is they can get bubbles in them, and then they just don't look that great. So if you have to get a screen protector, I recommend the tempered glass ones, because the tempered glass ones at least will not have the issues of phantom taps, and they will not have the issues of looking bubbly or getting bubbles in them. They should be just fine if you do have to get a screen protector. The one thing about screen protectors is while the glass is usually very good, it's not as good as the glass on the screen itself, so it can be subject to chipping if you bump it or something of that nature. But at least it's not your screen. You can easily replace the tempered glass screen protector, and many of them have lifetime warranties on them. So if you do need to do that, that is a possibility. Zag, probably Belkin. I think there's a few different ones, but you can, look for yourself on that. Apple doesn't make one natively, but I did want to address that because a lot of people do like to have screen protectors, understandably. So there you go on the screen protector topic. All right. Now let's talk about, before we go on to the next area of accessories, let's talk about what if, I only discussed the 10.2-inch iPad. So what if you have the 10.9-inch iPad Air, or either one of the iPad Pro models, 11 or 12.9. What does Apple offer for those? In those cases, they actually make, instead of a smart cover, they make what's called a smart folio. And being a smart folio, it does offer back protection. So we don't have to worry about an extra leather sleeve or something like that, because it does protect both the front and the back. Now, it still has the microfiber. It still wakes and sleeps the iPad. It still has the magnets, and it still supports all the different configurations as a stand, as a, whatever, just like we mentioned with the smart cover for the 9th generation. So it is the same concept. It does have, because it also offers back protection, it does have a camera cutout in the back. And, of course, it's available specifically for all three models. You can purchase one for the iPad Air 5th generation, one for the iPad Pro 11-inch, and a different one for the iPad 12.9-inch. There's three different models of Smart Folio. Again, it's the Apple Smart Folio. It is available in multiple colors. I have two of them. I have a marine blue one, which my iPad Air is blue anyway. So the folio is marine blue, and again the electric orange. I really love that. So those, and there are other colors. So you can get one that's just right for you, and the iPad fits just perfectly in it. It's easy to get in and out, and really does do a great job. In that case, the iPad just sort of rests right in the folio. Actually, I said magnets, but I mean, it's really easy to get it in and out. So that's, that takes care of that. Now let's talk about keyboards. We did talk about these a little bit at the beginning of the course, but I do want to revisit this. Again, we'll start with the iPad 9th generation. And actually, we talked about this more recently than the beginning. We talked about it when we were discussing typing in notes with keyboards. But again, I want to just revisit this one more time while we're talking about accessories, because we really can't leave it out. And basically, the first one we're going to talk about is the iPad 9th generation, 10.2. Again, it works with 7th, 8th, and 9th. And it is Apple's very own accessory, the Apple Smart Keyboard. And it is very similar to the smart cover, microfiber lining, magnets, wakes and sleeps, multiple configurations, right? Instead of just being a cover, though, it has a keyboard inside it, and the keyboard unfolds. And when you then put the iPad into typing mode by sort of placing the iPad on a groove above the letters on the keyboard, above the keys, then it automatically is ready to type. There's no pairing. It's not Bluetooth. There's no battery in the keyboard. And what's great about this, too, is if for those that really want to, you can use it right out of the box. In other words, you get a brand new iPad, you can attach this keyboard, and as soon as you turn VoiceOver on, if you're a VoiceOver user, you can put it in typing. You can start typing using the keyboard to, type, let's say, your Apple ID or Wi-Fi password or something if you're not using automatic setup. So there's a lot of benefits to the smart keyboard over a Bluetooth keyboard, okay? And again, that is the Apple Smart Keyboard. Now, if you are using one of the iPad Air or Pro models of recent, then we want to look at the Smart Keyboard Folio. Again, it just adds the word folio to it. The other one was the Smart Folio instead of the Smart Cover. There's no keyboard on that one, but this is the Smart Keyboard Folio. Now, there are only two models of this, one for the iPad Pro 12.9-inch, and the other one for both the iPad Air and the iPad Pro 11-inch. It's the same Smart Keyboard Folio for both of those models because, again, as we mentioned a few minutes ago with the 10.5 versus 10.2, I believe it's the same chassis, essentially, that is used in the iPad Air 5th generation as the iPad Pro 11-inch. If not, it's very, very similar. And it's similar enough that they can use the same Smart Keyboard Folio. You will notice the camera cutout is a square. It's a little bit bigger, which doesn't hurt anything, but it's made so that if you have an iPad Pro, all of the cameras are exposed. And of course, it works just fine with the Air as well. There are not multiple colors for this, but, well, it's still going to, do the job quite nicely. The keys on the keyboard for both the Smart Keyboard and the Smart Keyboard Folio are very kind of a fabric feel. And it's a very tight fabric. It's not like typing on a sweater or something, when it's sort of misleading to say fabric, I guess, but that is kind of, it's it feels good. I like it. I've seen the gamut of opinions on this. Some people love it. Some people totally dislike it. I happen to be among those that really like it. And it, it's a full-size keyboard, okay? With the iPad Air and Pro models of this Smart Keyboard Folio, the way that it's designed, it doesn't have the folding capabilities. I mean, you can put it around back so that it's not being used when you're not typing, but there's not an extra flap. So the keyboard is just exposed on the back, which means your fingers are touching the keys when you're holding it that way, and the keys are setting down on your lap or on a table or whatever when you set it down that way. Not a big deal. Some reviewers are not really a big fan of that. It doesn't really bother me. I've used it just fine. But it doesn't fold. And when I say that, I mean it doesn't fold into a number of different positions. It doesn't flex, okay? Whereas the Smart Keyboard for the 9th generation one definitely does, because the keyboard flap is folded in, so you have more flexibility there. I believe that was probably designed for a reason that way, though, with the Air and the Pro. And one thing you do have with this Smart Keyboard Folio is two different viewing angles when you're typing. There are actually two grooves. I mentioned a few minutes ago that you place the iPad into a groove above the keys. Well, the Smart Keyboard Folio for the Air and the Pro actually happens to have two grooves, sets of grooves, so you can have it more angled, in two different ways. Now, the other option, of course, if you are a user of an iPad Air or Pro, is the Magic Keyboard, okay? Now, there, again, are only two models of it, one for the Air and 11-inch, and the other one for the 12.9-inch. Two colors, black and white. The Magic Keyboard is not to be confused with the Magic Keyboard for Mac, okay? There is a Magic Keyboard for the Macintosh. It comes with your iMac, and you can buy it to go with your Mac Studio or your, Mac Mini, things of that nature, or even your MacBooks. It is a Bluetooth Magic Keyboard, and some of them now have Touch ID in them. That is not what we're talking about here. We are talking about a specifically designed Magic Keyboard with trackpad for the iPad Air or Pro. This is the best of the best. There is no other keyboard like it that Apple makes. And as far as I'm concerned, as much as I love the Smart Keyboard for the 9th generation, this Magic Keyboard for the Air and the Pro is, in my opinion, the absolute best typing experience I have ever had on any keyboard with any device ever. It is just an absolutely amazing typing experience. It has what Apple calls a floating cantilever hinge design. What that really means is you kind of line up the iPad with it and then it can tilt. You can adjust the viewing angle. It floats above the keys. There's a nice metal hinge that holds it into place, and you can sort of tilt it in and outward. It allows the iPad to truly look and feel like a laptop. And when it closes, it offers really good protection of the front and the back. It also is the only iPad keyboard that Apple makes with backlit keys. So you do have a lighted keyboard with automatic brightness adjustment based upon the ambient lighting conditions. There is also a manual override. You can adjust the keyboard brightness from Control Center if you put the control in there, or from your settings. But it does also automatically adjust, and most of the reviewers that I've seen they had anything to say about it have said it typically gets it right. So you usually don't have to adjust it yourself, but you can. This Magic Keyboard does not have a fabric key feel. It has a very traditional scissor key mechanism feel, but even better than anything else I've ever used. I mean, it just feels like it puts me in the mindset of like if it were a driving experience, like driving a sports car. I mean, it just is incredible. The other thing that this Magic Keyboard offers is a USB-C port. Now, it does use the smart connector, and it is not Bluetooth, so there's no battery in it and there's no pairing. You never have to charge it. So why is there a USB-C port in it? Well, you can use it for pass-through charging to charge your iPad. So here's what happens. With any of the other keyboards I've talked about, the iPad has to be in landscape mode with the home button or the charge port facing to the right. And that is also true of the Magic Keyboard that we're talking about now. Not an issue unless you need to charge your iPad and your only available cable is coming from the left. In that case, you're going to have to kind of rearrange, because that cord is probably not going to reach the right side of the iPad, and even if it does, it's probably going to be all bent and it's not going to be good for it. So the Magic Keyboard solves that problem by putting an extra port, and it happens to be on the left, so you can charge from either direction. The other sort of added benefit to this is that you could have your iPad charging while also using another accessory like a thumb drive or something. Now, you cannot use the port on the keyboard for data transfer, so no thumb drives or SD cards in that port, but it frees up the built-in port on your iPad Air or Pro to accept other accessories while you still are charging the device. So this is a really, really nice keyboard. It is pretty pricey, unless you find it on sale, but honestly, it's worth every penny. And if you can swing it financially, praise God, you know what? You'll buy it and you'll start using it and you'll forget how much it costs, because it's totally worth it. One of the things I'll say about both these solutions that I just talked about for the Air and the Pro, that is the Smart Keyboard Folio and the Magic Keyboard, is that it is my opinion. Now, you don't have to agree with it. That's okay. Not everybody does. But it is my opinion that you're going to want a second folio or cover or something, and you're going to want to not use this keyboard unless you actually intend to type, especially the Magic Keyboard. One of the reviewers I saw on YouTube put it best, I think, when he said about the Magic Keyboard that it is a one-trick pony, but it's a really good trick. And I agree with both parts of that. It is a really good trick. It does a fantastic job. Best keyboard I've ever used, as I said. But it is limiting as to how you can put the iPad. And if you like to curl up with the iPad like it's a good book, or watch, a movie and sort of hold it up close to you and stuff, you're not going to be doing that when it's in the Magic Keyboard. It totally changes the look and feel of the iPad. And if you want a great typing experience that looks and feels like a laptop, that's perfect. But for the times that you don't, the iPad can be so many things, then we just want to take it out of there and put it in the, for example, Smart Folio. Okay, not the Smart Keyboard Folio necessarily, just the regular one. And that gives you that flexibility. And that's what I do. So I just keep the Magic Keyboard with me. When I need to type, I can swap it out in a matter of a handful of seconds. It's really, really simple. Very easy to do once you learn how to do it. All right, now, if you do want to go third party, Trainer Cliff has talked about this before, and he may weigh in near the end of today's session as well again. But there are some third party keyboards that are also very good. Of note, Logitech seems to get it quite right in many cases, and they, I don't know as they'd necessarily call themselves a partner of Apple. I don't know that Apple would call them that, but they seem to work very, very closely with Apple and make a lot of exclusive stuff just for the iPad. So your 9th generation has some slim folio options, as Logitech would call them. They also have the rugged folio touch, I think it is, and the combo touch. And then they also make the rugged combo, which is an education-focused keyboard. And then for the pros, again, you have the combo touch and I think Slim Folio Pros. So there's several options from Logitech, Zag, Bridge, are other brands that make very well-respected, good quality keyboards, keyboard folio types of things. And of course, you can use just a plain old Bluetooth keyboard with your iPad. The reason I don't recommend it is because having the keyboard as part of the cover or case solution really does add something special to the iPad in that it does kind of turn it into this laptop feel. And so, I really prefer that method. But, if somebody had an extra Bluetooth keyboard and wanted to do it that way, certainly you could do it. All right. The next accessory that I'd like to talk about is a drawing utensil. And there are Apple Pencils for both models of the iPad. All models, I should say. The iPad 10.2 inch, 7th, 8th, and 9th generation, and actually clear back to the 6th generation, 9.7 inch iPad, uses the Apple Pencil 1st generation. And then your iPad Air and Pro models in recent years are going to use the Apple Pencil 2nd generation. Apple still sells both of them. They're both current products. And they're very similar in what they can do. Their features and functionality are almost identical, and that's okay because they're great. They really didn't need to change anything. Very low latency. Sorry about that, guys. There we go. Very low latency, palm rejection, pressure sensitivity. The harder you press, the darker you can write. You can sort of do shading with the side by using the side of the Apple Pencil. And for those folks who are Apple Pencil users and you're interested in this, my daughter's going to demo it, as I said, in one of the next sessions here with a couple of apps, and you'll get to see that. Excuse me. But what are the differences between the 1st and 2nd generation Apple Pencil besides which iPads they're compatible with? And the answer to that has to do with the way that they are charged. For one thing, the 1st generation Apple Pencil has a cap on the bottom of it, and removing it exposes a lightning connector that plugs into your iPad. So you can actually charge the Apple Pencil with the lightning port on your iPad. If you don't want to do it that way, the 1st generation Apple Pencil also comes with an adapter that you plug into that lightning port on the bottom of the Apple Pencil, and then you can use a lightning cable to charge it. It is technically Bluetooth, but you plug it into the iPad in order to pair it. And if you restart your iPad, if you turn it off completely and restart it, then you have to plug in the Apple Pencil again to sort of reactivate. It's just a matter of plugging it in and then it's ready to go. It supports quick charging, so you can, get a couple, 30 minutes of use or something with a very short charge. But you can do a longer one to, charge it fully. And that's the 1st generation. The 2nd generation Apple Pencil does not have a cap or a port on the bottom. Instead, the Apple Pencil magnetizes to the side of the iPad Air and Pro, and that's how it charges. Some people believe that that's also a way to store their Apple Pencil. Now, I'm not a fan of doing that because I don't think it's very secure to do that, but I suppose you could, especially for a short time, and certainly while you're charging it, obviously, because that's how it charges. Now, one other feature that the 2nd gen Apple Pencil has that the 1st doesn't is a touch surface on the side of it that you can double tap with your fingers to quickly change from one writing tool to another, such as, for example, pencil to crayon, or by default, whatever you're drawing or writing with, to the eraser tool in supported apps. So that's another great benefit. So both Apple Pencils are very good. I can't say that I recommend one over the other because that's not even an option. You get the one that is supported by your model of iPad, okay? And again, if it's an Air or Pro, at least after 2018 or newer, Pro, and 4th and 5th generation Air, then you want the 2nd generation Apple Pencil. 6th through 9th generation iPads and older Pros and Airs will use, well, not Airs because that didn't support it, but older Pros will use the 1st generation Apple Pencil. If you want to get something that is a little bit less maybe professional, and that's reflected by price and, you know, those kinds of things, you might consider the Logitech Crayon. This is very similar in features and functionality. It uses a lot of the same technology as the Apple Pencil. The only thing it lacks is the pressure sensitivity. So if you want to change darkness or lightness of what you're drawing, you have to do it within the app that you're using. Why is this more... why would I say this is less professional? This is great for kids. It has some features that really make it great for kids. For one thing, it's metal, and it's very rugged. The tip of it doesn't sort of screw off. It has a, you know, it requires a tool to remove it. It's not always on. It turns off. There's a button on it to turn it off. It doesn't require Bluetooth pairing. It's a special, like a low-level radio frequency, basically. So you can pick up a Logitech Crayon and literally use it with any compatible iPad instantly. You have to unpair an Apple Pencil if it's paired to it. But other than that, you know, you can just pick it up, turn it on, and you're writing within, you know, 2 or 3 seconds. And this is great for a classroom setting because you don't have to make sure the same person gets the same crayon every time. You know, you could have a bin or that sort of thing. It has, the only thing that it does have is a rubber cap on the bottom of it that can break off, I suppose, but you could replace that, or even if it's not on there, it really doesn't affect the use of it. That cap, when you lift it up, allows you to plug the crayon in with a lightning cable in order to charge it. There's a lightning port under there. It's also not able to roll because it's more of a square design. And they have them in orange, so it's kind of, you know, bright colors, kind of cool. So that's the Logitech Crayon and the Apple Pencil. Now, there are other styluses, styluses, I don't know what the correct word is, that you can get, but they're not typically of anything close to the same caliber. Most of them don't pair to the device, and so you're not getting this specific functionality for drawing. It's just kind of like a finger on the end of a pencil. You know, it's not the same thing. So the Apple Pencil and the Logitech Crayon are going to be the best. There are some others that are, by some reviewers, considered to be pretty close, but, you know, those are the two we'll stick with recommending here. All right, now let's talk about adapters for the iPad. Connectivity. How can we connect this iPad to other types of devices? And there are several adapters we're going to talk about here. Let's, again, as we have before, start out with the 10.2-inch iPad. And here, really anything from probably the 5th or 6th generation all the way up to the 9th generation. There are a couple of adapters that are very useful here. The first ones we'll talk about are the camera connection adapters. Now, they were designed originally as camera adapters, but they can also be used for other things, okay? So there are two ways that you might consider connecting a camera to your iPad to get photos from it. One being connecting to the camera directly by USB, and the other by taking the SD card out of a camera and plugging it into the iPad. So there it is. You can see that we can use these for other things now. The USB, for example, can be used to connect to any USB device, and as changes in the iPad OS software have made it more and more capable, this is of even more and even greater import, because now you can connect USB thumb drives, flash drives, you can connect USB MIDI devices, which again relates directly to GarageBand if we want to connect our iPad to a digital piano so that when we play the keys on the piano, it plays the instrument sounds in GarageBand, and you can record and so forth that way. That's how we do it, with USB. And so how do we get a USB port on our iPad? Well, for that, we need the Lightning to USB 3 camera adapter. Now, get the one that has the number 3 in it, my friends. Don't get the other one. And the reason for this is because this USB 3, first of all, is a newer standard than USB 2. And secondly, it is going to give you 2 ports on the other end of it. So you got a Lightning connector on one end that looks like a tail, and that connects to your iPad, and it gives you 2 ports out the back, out the other end of it. One is your USB port that you actually are looking for. The other is another Lightning port. Again, pass-through charging. So we can charge the iPad while we're connected to our digital piano or our USB drive or whatever. The other reason that Lightning port is so important is because if you do decide you want to do external file storage, I'm not a big fan of it, personally, external file storage on flash drives, because I use iCloud for everything, and a combination of iCloud, AirDrop, email, that sort of thing. I don't really personally have need of, physical external drives, but some people do, or some people just want it. That's fine, If you are using it, though, certain drives, especially bus-powered hard drives, are going to take more power than the iPad is typically able to provide by itself. So what you do is you plug the adapter in and you plug it into power. So now you've got electrical power, and that provides the additional power that your drive will need. So that's another reason I say get the one that has the USB 3 in its name. Again, it's available at Apple. I don't recommend going third-party for these because they may not work, even though they say they might. Lightning to USB 3 camera adapter. The other part of what used to be the camera connection kit, and then it was kind of separated out, is when they made it Lightning, they did that. It's the Lightning to SD card reader. So here again, you plug in. Now this one does not have a second Lightning port, but you plug it into the Lightning connector of the iPad, and you get an SD card slot on the other end. You can put your camera cards in it. You can also use SD cards, again, for external storage of other things, okay? So that is the process of connecting. Now, the third adapter that I want to talk about is the Lightning Digital AV adapter. A as in Alpha, V as in Victor. Lightning Digital AV adapter. Plug this into your iPad, and what you get is another Lightning port on the other end for charging, and an HDMI port. With this, you can connect your iPad directly to a television or a projector using HDMI. Video and audio will pass through that. So it's a great way, though not my favorite way, but it's a great way to connect to, say, a television or, as I said, a projector. We'll talk about AirPlay later on, which is definitely my recommended way, the preferred way. But sometimes AirPlay is not an option. Maybe you're in a classroom or a boardroom and they don't have an Apple TV or a smart TV with AirPlay, but they do have a projector with HDMI, and so you can connect that way. This is a great adapter. All right, now, what if we are using an iPad Air or Pro, which does not have a Lightning port, but instead has a USB-C port? If we're being really technical, the Pros actually have Thunderbolt ports, not USB-C, but it's basically the same. It's related to the same standard and uses the same connector, so they are backwards compatible. So you need a USB-C adapter instead of a Lightning. Now, they've done a little bit of something unique here. Apple gives you a little more in the adapter. The first adapter we're going to talk about, this is a long name, so if you're taking notes, get ready for this. I'll say it a couple times. If you're watching on YouTube, you may need to, listen back a couple of times. It is the not Lightning. Let me start over. It is the USB-C Digital AV Multi-Port Adapter. Say that 3 times fast. The USB-C Digital AV Multi-Port Adapter. Again, that's Alpha Victor. USB-C Digital AV Multi-Port Adapter. One end of this plugs into the USB-C port or Thunderbolt port on your iPad Air or Pro. And what you get on the other end is quite remarkable. You get another USB-C port for charging. You get a USB port, like USB-A, and you get an HDMI port. So 3 ports on the other end of this adapter. Very, very nice. They also have the USB-C to SD card reader. And that is a separate adapter, and you may choose to get that as well. I believe there may also be a USB-C audio adapter with a headphone jack, but I don't remember for sure. Certainly third party there would be. But that's the gamut of adapters. Now, again, there are third-party adapters. There are definitely options for those looking to do it third-party. One of the most high-end of these options is called Hyper, and I think it's Hyperdrive. They have when I had one, it was like a 5-in-1 or 9-in-1. It had SD card, it had audio jack, HDMI, USB, micro USB, USB-C. So maybe it was 6-in-1. I can't remember. Now I think they're up to like 20-something in one. I don't even know what all you get for that. Probably some of them are duplicates, but there's one for the iPad that even has media playback buttons on it. You hit play and pause and things like that. So that's a great option to consider. Seichi has some. You could look at all different options here. You certainly may want to pick up additional chargers and Lightning or USB-C cables. All iPads now use the 20-watt USB-C charger. It's just then you either use a USB-C to Lightning cable or USB-C to USB-C. There's also a great third-party option from Anker, and it's called the Atom charger. I forget, there's an exact model number. I'll look it up for those who are interested. It has 2 USB-C ports in it. And therefore, you can connect a USB-C cable and a Lightning cable so that you could charge 2 different kinds of devices, and it has plenty of power to go around. I think it has, I forget if it's like 60 watts total of power, or if it's 30 some. Either way, there's enough for you to charge your iPad and fast charge an iPhone, and even at the same time. And so it's a very good third-party adapter that I highly recommend. I also mentioned to you that I'd talk a little about briefcases. I have briefcases for each of my iPads. That seems to almost be a fading thing these days. A lot of people are not, using cases, but I like to have everything with me, I like to have my adapters, my keyboard, everything I want with, and certainly the briefcase is the best way to do that. One of the most recent ones I got from Amazon was a Targus, and it was only like, I don't know, $19 or something. And it has enough room for everything for my iPad. I also got a little like $8 Apple Pencil leather case for the second generation Apple Pencil that doesn't go in my leather sleeve, and that was I'll put the I can't remember the name of it, so I'll put that up in the description of the video and those sorts of things for anybody that wants that. Of course, other accessories that we highly recommend are AirPods. You can still get the second generation AirPods. You can also get the third generation AirPods, which have added the adaptive EQ and spatial audio support and a longer battery life. And of course, you have the AirPods Pro and the AirPods Max as well. And then, we recommend those as accessories. And some people would even call the Apple TV and the HomePod accessories. They'd look at them that way. And if you do, I certainly recommend those as well. All right, so that's going to sort of really complete the basic, accessories category. And what's nice about this is if you get these adapters, then a lot of other accessories become available. For example, USB microphones. Now, I love the built-in mics on the iPads. I think they're fantastic. But maybe you want, an external mic. And if you have a USB adapter like the ones we've mentioned, you can connect a USB microphone. Maybe you want to connect a projector. Well, again, just get the adapter and then, choose whatever you like. There are projectors in all price ranges and all categories of sizes and viewing distances and all these things. So, you can sort of begin to really have fun with that. And what this does is it opens up a whole world of accessories that were previously only thought to work with traditional computers. But now they work with your iPad. So what about printing? Can we just hook up a USB printer? Well, actually, no. What we want to use is AirPrint. Now, AirPrint is the name for Apple's wireless printing technology, the standard, which most printers support now. Certainly, any of the major manufacturers, HP, Brother, Canon, Epson, they're all going to support AirPrint. You can see a list of AirPrint compatible printers by Googling it, and Apple has an official support article about AirPrint, and in it they have a whole list of AirPrint compatible printers. But most printers will support it, and if you look for a printer that has Wi-Fi, it's probably going to have AirPrint as well. All of the HP printers I've seen in a long time definitely have it. And there were some printers that previously didn't come with it, but were upgraded by firmware updates to support it. With AirPrint, you simply get your printer onto your Wi-Fi network. For some printers, that's an accessible experience. For others, you might need sighted assistance. HP has an app called HP Smart that you can do it all from your iPad or iPhone. It's fully accessible. And I believe I've heard that a couple other manufacturers' printers have that kind of experience as well. And so you can easily get that printer onto your Wi-Fi network. Once you do, the iPad will see it because of AirPrint. So that means there are no specific drivers to install. You don't have to download the correct printer driver and do all the right things. It just works. You go into an app that supports AirPrint, that supports printing, like Safari, Notes, Pages, Photos, and a variety of others, and a lot of third-party ones too. And you choose the print option. And it's usually in the share sheet or under More in the case of Pages and Keynote and Numbers. And you tap on Select Printer. It will look for available AirPrint printers that are on the same Wi-Fi network. So just make sure your iPad is on the same Wi-Fi network as your printer. If you are someone who has a dual network where their Wi-Fi system broadcasts two separate networks, one at a 5 gigahertz and one at a 2.4 gigahertz frequency, that's not a problem. Even if your iPad is on the 5 gigahertz and your printer is on the 2.4, they will still talk to each other. Okay, so that's not an issue. But just make sure you're using the same, network for both. And you're good. You're going to be good to go. And you can, select the number of copies. You can choose other options, just like any good, system should allow. It does, customizing how things are printed out and so forth. And you can monitor the printing by going to Print Center, which I believe is in the app switcher while something is printing out, and then it just goes away on its own. And it really is that easy. So simple. Incredibly. So that's AirPrint. While we're talking about wireless technology with the word air, let's talk about AirPlay. So AirPlay is the wireless audio standard. And if I'm really being technically correct, now it's AirPlay 2. Now, with AirPlay 2, what we can have is a couple of different things. The first implementation of AirPlay 2 allows us to play the sound, the audio from our iPads or other Apple devices on compatible speakers. Now, what are the best AirPlay 2 compatible speakers? The HomePods, of course. The full-size HomePod that's been discontinued, but also the HomePod minis that are available, and very likely whatever Apple releases next in that line. And so you're going to be able to, play your music, your YouTube videos, anything you're playing on your iPad, the audio from it on these speakers, like your HomePods. There are also third-party speakers that support AirPlay 2, one of the most well-known being Sonos. So, of course, Sonos has its own wireless audio technology for those who are familiar with the product, but they also support AirPlay 2, and a lot of other third-party speakers really do as well. The Apple TV can also be used as an AirPlay 2 speaker, but of course, there's no speakers in the Apple TV. It's a set-top box, but whatever television it's connected to will receive the audio, so you can play it through your sound bar or home theater system. In my case, the HomePods are my home theater system, so that it's 6-1, right? And of course, you can play directly from the Apple TV. But it's a great implementation if you are using your iPad and you want to play something in another room. How do you access AirPlay? Sometimes the app that you're using has an AirPlay button right in the app. But if not, you just go to the Control Center. We learned about Control Center earlier, and there's an option in there called Playback Destination. You can pick your AirPods if you have them in your ears. You can also pick from a variety of speakers and TVs that support AirPlay. If you have Google Nest products like the Nest Hub, the Nest Mini, there is a little thing called a Starling Home Hub, which allows these Nest speakers to also act as AirPlay receivers or AirPlay speakers. So you can even use those. AirPlay 2 supports multi-room audio, so you can easily play in the kitchen and the living room and the bedroom or whatever. Maybe even the bathroom while you're taking a shower. And you can easily AirPlay. If you are going to AirPlay to Chromecast speakers like the Nest speakers, though, you're going to want to set up a group in the Google Home app first and then use AirPlay to send to it in that regard. The other, and by the way, you can do this for phone calls too. The issue might be where the microphone is, right? So, there's also Playback Destination supports Bluetooth for the car and all kinds of things. So you can easily, change this right in your phone app. You can choose the audio source for phone calls, AirPods, and so on. But now there's another implementation of, and by the way, AirPlay, I should mention this, AirPlay 2 is Wi-Fi, not Bluetooth, okay? So you do have to be on the same Wi-Fi network as whatever device you're trying to AirPlay to. Another implementation of AirPlay is screen mirroring. Now, screen mirroring allows us to display whatever is on our iPad screen as well as the audio on compatible devices. What are your compatible devices going to be? It's going to be, first and foremost, the Apple TV. Secondly, various smart TVs that happen to have AirPlay built in, like the LG, Vizio, Samsung, all of these and more have AirPlay technology built into them. And so AirPlay screen mirroring, which is also available in the Control Center, allows you to choose which device you mirror to. And again, it's going to include the audio and the video. This is a great experience, which really does work well. And it's a great way to, nowadays there's so much available on the Apple TV. So if you have an Apple TV, you won't probably need screen mirroring all that often because you can do so much on the Apple TV itself. But maybe you do. Maybe there's a certain game you really love on the iPad, your family loves, and it's not available on the tvOS App Store for whatever reason. Or maybe you want to show a website or a keynote presentation, and you can do that with screen mirroring. And again, that also would work with projectors. If you connect an Apple TV to a projector instead of to a television, you could screen mirror then effectively to that projector. And we actually have a teacher, or we did have a teacher, who has done that in his classroom. My son had him, and he, instead of using the Chromebook and the stuff that the district supplied, he took an Apple TV, connected it to the HDMI port, and was able to screen mirror. I don't know how he got around the Wi-Fi restrictions at the time. Now, Apple TV supports captive networks, like networks where you maybe at a hotel have to like sign in, log in, although the district didn't actually have a captive network. It just had some weird Wi-Fi settings. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I digress. Rabbit trail, sorry. Anyway, somehow he did it, and he was able to use the Apple TV in his classroom, which I thought was really cool. All right, so that's screen mirroring. All right, so we've talked about a variety of standards here. We've talked about a variety of features and functions. I want to take a couple minutes. We're going to, as I said, end a few minutes early today because I have another meeting, but we are going to definitely allow time for trainer discussions and Q&A. But I want to just take a few minutes, and I want to talk, I want to review some very common sense security kinds of things. I just take a couple minutes and talk about this. We're not going to do it extensively here. We typically do have a security cafe. We used to call them something else, but a security cafe where we discuss in greater detail privacy, security, safety, and all those things. But I just want to cover a few things, and I also want to cover a few maintenance things. All right, so let's start with the maintenance things and get them out of the way first. What are the kinds of maintenance things that you might want to do with your iPad? Well, of course, we want to always close all of our apps, right? No, we do not. We actually do not want to close all of our apps. It is completely unnecessary and not helpful. So there used to be a belief that we ought to always go into the app switcher and close everything out, and that if we didn't, our iPad would start to run more slowly and perform badly and so on. That is simply not true. iOS and iPadOS do an absolutely fantastic job, definitely better than any other operating system I've ever seen. Even better than macOS, by the way. And macOS is better than any other desktop operating system. But even better than that, iPadOS and iOS manage memory just beautifully. And the incredible way in which they take apps from a suspended state to a closed state and then can bring them back up again, this is just unbelievable. You never need to force quit the apps that are running. They will not cause your performance to degrade, and they will not drain battery life. If anything, force quitting the apps will affect performance more, because when you do go to reopen that app, it's got to reload all of it where it was. It's only going to be a few seconds difference, but it will make a difference because the other way, without force quitting them, they just sort of stay in a suspended state, and it keeps track of where they were. Now, why is force quit even available then? When would you ever want to use it? Well, there are two potential situations where you might want to use it. The most prominent one is if an app ever is just misbehaving, just glitching, as we would say in the vernacular. Something is not working properly the way it should, the way you expect it to in a particular app. Chances are, 9 times out of 10, if you force quit that app, it will start working properly again. And so that's a time to force quit an app and relaunch it. I don't have to do that very often, but every once in a great while. So that's one situation where it might be beneficial. The other time that some people do it is certain apps that do continue to run in the background, like GPS apps. Now, I don't do it with Apple Maps. I never force quit Apple Maps, but I think some of our trainers do, and that's fine. And certainly some third-party GPS apps that they're just not sure. You can force quit those to save a little battery power. And similarly, some apps that use the audio system won't function normally if you don't force quit them. And again, that's usually not by design. It's usually something where the app just needs an update. There's a little, bug in the app or something. I used to have a metronome app that did that. And actually, the Google Home app was doing it pretty recently. I think they've fixed it since then. But there was a period of time where if you accessed your doorbell, Nest doorbell from the Google Home app, when you left the Google Home app, your audio would still sound like it was coming through the earpiece or through a muffled sort of, it was just weird. And so force quitting the Google Home app, is the solution to that. And it was very, very easy. I mean, it's not a big deal. Those are about the only cases in which you'd ever really need or want to force quit an app. Well, what about a force restart? Again, a lot of times people said, oh, I should do that. No, you don't ever need to do that. The only time to ever do a force restart is to if the device is completely unresponsive, if nothing else works. And the force restart is where you press and hold the home button and the top button together for about 10 seconds. Or if you don't have a home button, you do the volume up, volume down, press volume up and let it go, press volume down and let it go, and then press and hold the top button for about 10 seconds. That's a force restart. Don't do it. You never need to do it unless there's absolutely no other way. If the iPad or device is just completely unresponsive, which hardly ever happens, but if it would, that's the way out of it then. Okay, but that's not something to do as a standard practice. If you ever want to just restart the iPad, just turn it off normally. And even that is something that we don't typically have to do. Some people choose to do it once a week, I don't even do that. I just, especially as a beta tester, any devices that I've installed a beta on are restarting pretty regularly anyway, because when I, get beta updates, it has to restart. But if you want to restart them, that's a complete shutdown. It's you press and hold the top button and then tap on the power off thing, slide, or on an iPad Air or Pro, you have to press and hold the top button along with the volume button. This is the typical restart. There's no hard reset, soft reset. These are terms that people sort of drug into the Apple world from like Windows and other platforms. Apple doesn't use them. It's just a restart, a force restart, and neither one of them is typically necessary. And by the way, you can also do a shutdown by going to settings, and then under general, you'll find shutdown as the very last option. That's another way to do that. All right. Other maintenance that you might want to do periodically is clean your iPad, especially the screen. Apple recommends using a dry, soft cloth. Apple actually makes the polishing cloth that you can buy, or you can use other third-party microfiber kind of cleaning products. And you don't want to use, soaps or anything like that. Just a dry cloth. Wipe off the whole thing. Now, you might say, well, what if there is a spot on it, I accidentally, got something on it or whatever. You can use a little bit of water, but you want to make sure the iPad is off. And when I say a little bit, I mean it's got to be damp. If you're using something where you've put water on it, you need to wring it out really, really thoroughly. Just wipe that spot and then immediately dry it with a soft cloth. And also, as of at least 2020, when all the COVID stuff started, Apple did amend their recommendations to include, and they do allow for, the use of, for example, a Clorox wipe. However, when you use a Clorox wipe, again, you're going to want to really, really wring it out first. You're going to want to thoroughly wring it out so it's all but just damp. And wipe it off with the Clorox wipe, and then, again, if you find that it's still wet, then dry it off with a soft cloth again. Even a t-shirt will qualify as a soft cloth, by the way. But, if you're going to use the Clorox wipe, make sure you're not getting liquid into the ports either, because that will cause things to malfunction. You might have muffled sound coming from the speakers for a while and stuff like that. So you don't want that. So keep it pretty dry. But if you have to, you can use a Clorox wipe in those conditions. But clean your screen, clean the iPad, keep things functioning and humming nicely. And then, we should just talk about some practical security, common sense stuff. And I want the other trainers to join me in this and give their opinions here momentarily as well. But I didn't even look to see if anybody's, the other trainers are here. I'm assuming they are, but I have my speech off because we're also recording live here. Okay, so, I trust God for his protection. You look at earthly stuff, there's no unsinkable ship, right? In the earthly sense, there's no unsinkable ship. The horse is out of the barn, okay? The ship has sailed, whatever analogy you want to use. In that, we are now living in a world of digital life, of connected life, of cloud services, and that's a wonderful thing for most people. I think it's a great thing. But I know for some it does cause some concern, especially if you weren't raised with it and you think, is somebody spying on me? Is somebody, well, they're not, number one, okay? That's not how it works. Your smart speakers are not really listening to you. I mean, technically they are, because they got to know when you say their name or their wake word. But they're not really, because the data, everything you speak is like instantly deleted every couple seconds unless you do say the wake word. A lot of Siri commands are now processed on the device. They're not processed in the cloud. Some are, but a lot of them are processed on the device. Siri is more secure than any other smart assistant. And don't get me wrong, I love Google. I really do. I mean, not Android, but I love the Google smart speakers, the Nest and so forth. But Siri is far more secure than any other one. In particular, they anonymize their data, okay? They don't associate your speech requests with your Apple ID or anything like that. Yes, you can share your audio with Apple engineers so that they can, and the reason for that is that helps them to improve Siri, right? So if you tell Siri, I don't know, just something really weird. If you say to Siri, turn on my lights, and Siri responds, here's a treatment for lice. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but the Apple engineers will use that and benefit from it by saying, oh, that's not what that was supposed to do. So they need to hear your requests in order to be able to do that. So sharing your audio recordings with Apple is a good thing because it helps to continually improve Siri. But it's anonymous, okay? It's not sharing any information about you. They don't know who it is. So it's a very, very secure system. And across the board, Apple is very secure, very privacy focused. And you don't have to worry about viruses. You don't have to worry about spyware because it is not the way Apple systems are designed. And especially because of the so-called walled garden approach that Apple has taken. Now, a lot of people, when they say that, they say it critically. I say it very happily. I'm glad that it's a walled garden. So talk to your congressmen and women, my friends. I'm not joking. Any of them any of them you have connections with, tell them not to push for this nonsense of antitrust against Apple and self-preferencing where they want to allow side loading of apps and stuff. I could get onto a whole soapbox about this, and I'm not going to, all right? But do talk to them and say, we don't want side loading because it's going to really open up this platform to all kinds of potential evildoers and all kinds of potential viruses and stuff that we don't have to deal with right now. All right. But anyway, I will calm down about that. That's a discussion for a different time. The point is you don't have to worry about that stuff. Your apps come from the App Store. They've been vetted. Yes, Apple makes mistakes like anybody. They're human, okay? But they're usually corrected very, very quickly if it does happen. And so the apps are vetted properly. You know that they do what they say they're going to do. You might still not like an app. You might not agree with the way they've chosen to design the interface, or it may have a bug or two here or there. But overall, the app is not going to harm your device or you, okay? But we still are living in the internet age. And so there still could potentially be security risks at times. So what are some common sense practices that we can take to ensure that we're doing everything we can do to keep ourselves, our families, and our information private and secure? First of all, can't stress this enough, two-factor authentication for your Apple ID. Again, guys, the ship has sailed, okay? It's time to stop debating this and just do it, okay? I'm not trying to be mean. I love all of you. I don't mean it that, okay? But it's time, all right? We got to just move on. Two-factor authentication is the way. Just do it, okay? It is a good thing. It is for your own protection, and it is not going to inconvenience you on a daily basis. The only time you ever need to even be aware of it is when you are signing in a new device or you're visiting from a different web browser, an Apple site, or something like that. Once you're signed in, you're good to go. Your device becomes a trusted device, okay? So two-factor authentication adds that extra layer of protection. Use a secure password with your Apple ID. Do not use password 123, okay? Do not use, an easy-to-detect name of your pet or something like that. You got to use uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and even some symbols. And what you want to do is you want to also make sure that when you do this, when you create your passwords, you use iCloud Keychain, which we already talked about. Keychain stores your passwords, and Keychain can even create, you might remember, passwords for you, so you don't have to come up with them. All right, and that's my favorite way to do it. But for your Apple ID password, you'll have to have that one memorized, written down, whatever you need to do, because you can't use Keychain until you're signed in already. So make sure you always remember your Apple ID password, and make sure you keep your trusted phone numbers up to date. That way, if for some reason you can't receive a code when you are trying to sign in a new device, you can get a text message or a phone call, or a family member can get a text message or a phone call with a code so that you can, get into your Apple ID. So again, always keep your password up to date and remember it, and maybe even keep it written down. And then always make sure you keep your trusted phone numbers up to date. But use two-factor authentication, because then even if somebody does figure out your password and Apple ID combination, they hit the wall. They can't go any further unless you allow access to their device. And it has happened to my wife. She had a notification one time that somebody from somewhere in China was trying to sign into her Apple ID. So of course she just said, "Don't allow." And I think she may have gone in and changed the password then too, and that's fine. So that's how you do that. Just keep that two-factor authentication enabled, especially on your Apple ID, but also on third-party websites that support two-factor or two-step verification. Go ahead and use it whenever you can. It's a great system. The other thing is, don't open attachments unless you are certain someone meant to send them to you. This is so important. Don't just open a random attachment. Look for clues in the emails, the words that are not spelled right. It's saying things weirdly. Something that claims to be from a service you have but doesn't have your name in it. You get a message from supposedly PayPal, but it's not really. And it says, "We have detected problem with your account." And you can tell the English isn't even good, And it's, "Your account will close if you do not verify your identity. We will permanently close your account. Click here to verify." Don't do it. Delete that email as fast as you possibly can. Report it if you want to. You should probably, but definitely delete it and get rid of it, and don't act on it. Nobody will ever call you or email you for your information like that. If you believe it might be legitimate, call the number you already know for the company, right? If you suspect it's fraudulent, but you want to be doubly sure, maybe it came from supposedly AT&T, well, then call AT&T at the number you always use to get a hold of them and ask them to make sure everything's in order with your account, So just don't, and again, I don't open attachments unless I know someone sent them to me, because I just think that is a mistake. So only install from trusted locations and sources, which again, of course, that's not a problem because we only can install from the App Store typically. And you know, you take these measures, these steps, always using good strong passwords, using keychain whenever you can, and you're going to be good to go. You know, again, in the earthly sense, there's no unsinkable ship, but these are some very common sense, very simple things that you can do to really, really ensure that you're doing everything that you can possibly do to keep yourself, your family, and your data secure.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is true, you're a pal and a confidant.